Welcome to this how-to guide. Today we're going to look at how to create and sew flat pleats. So most commonly found in things like the kilt. So that's the kind of pleats where it is folded onto itself. So step one is we're going to get our fabric. And my sample is roughly A4 size to A3 size, which is an average for your samples I want to see. So what we need to do, first step, is we need to iron our fabric. So what I've done is I've heated up my iron and I want to then go over and flatten and make sure that the fabric is all ironed so that when you go to mark it, it'll provide an even surface. And because I was using the iron, I also took away everything that needed to be taken away. So step two is where we're going to then put our fabric. I've got a cutting board underneath mine so I can see rough measurements. And this will be beneficial for me to see where it is going. So first, for your first one, roughly I want you to do 2 centimetre lines. And as you can see at the top of my cutting board, I've got in millimetres right along. So it's handy to then see that 10 millimetres is 1 centimetre. And then you can always double check that. So I've also measured out 2 centimetres onto a gauge with centimetres. And I'm using chalk, Taylor's chalk, all the way down. There's different methods you could use. You could use the guidance on the board. You could use a ruler with a sliding gauge, and also a set gauge. But in this occasion, I have put a wee clip at the bottom. And I'm also going to use a grader square. Although this is not a grader square, this is a set square for joinery. It does the same job if you don't have one at home, so maybe your dad will have one. So for every pleat, you have to do 2 centimetres along. So that is measuring along 2 centimetres each time. So slightly, my gauge is slightly off. But what I want to do is make sure it's along the flat and also down. With Taylor's chalk, you want to use the sharpened edge. And I want you to put your thumb and then guide it straight down, putting a pliable amount of pressure on. And then with that, I quite like using this method because then with the grader square, I can line it up easier. You want to then continue the process until the very end, with each time ensuring your fabric is flat and sitting on a flat surface. Now once you've done your 2 centimetre lines all the way across your fabric, the next step is how we're going to fold it in on itself. There's 2 ways you can do this. You can do it by moving the fabric along and pinning it and then ironing at the end, or you can iron as you go. The easiest way to do this is to iron as you go. And with that, it's sometimes easier to move the fabric in a portrait rather than landscape. So you're going to miss the first line out, you're going to take the second line and you're going to match it up. You're going to then miss another line and match it up with the following line. And then what you want to do is then give it a wee iron. Making sure your folds are very crisp. And then you can pop a wee pin in it to make sure it holds. and then you can pop a wee pin in it to make sure it holds. So there's another way. So now, to show again, you're going to pick up this line, you're going to miss a line and line it up with the following line. And then each time, taking a pin and pinning it. And it's easier to pin pointing this way, and you're just pinning the top for now. So taking the second line, so then moving it up, make sure that you clean and move things as you go to help. So then you want to take the next line, match it up with missing a line, match a line. And you want to make sure that they're all evenly gathered and evenly distributed. And because this is a pattern fabric, you'll see a form of design forming, which then can be added to your final garment. So you want to take a pin each time, and just make sure that your pins are sharp. Some of mine are not as sharp. And then pulling it, lining it up with, so you're missing a line, lining it up. And because we haven't pinned the bottom for now, it's good just to keep pulling it each time. It's good to iron, then pin, because this allows you to go right to the edge of the fabric. You can iron over the pins, only if the pins are made of glass. So then you've got your last pleat and you're going to miss a line, but then it goes right to the edge. So it's up to you whether you do that or you can leave it. So it forms the pleat. But for today we're going to miss a line and match it up with the very edge of the fabric. And we're going to fold it, and that will finish the seam off. You're going to pin it, and then you can turn it over for now, or it might be easier, it will be easier to turn it over, flatten the pleats and give it just another once iron now that you've pleated it all and pinned it, just pulling down from the pleats. Now that you've done that, you've now got one pinned side and then a pleat going down the way in a uniform fashion. So you're making sure that you've missed, and then just to double check you've done it right, is you can open it up and you'll see a line inside, and that fold will meet that fold. So you'll see open it, fold, line, match. Open it up, fold, line, match, fold, line, match. And that'll help you with that. So the next stage is how we're going to sew it. So what we're going to do is we're going to sew a superimposed seam along the edge, which is just a running stitch on the sewing machine. And I want it to be at 1 centimetre seam allowance. Now that you've sewn along the seam, I've sewn with the pins in. Preferably you would take the pins out as you sew. It's to prevent the pins getting stuck into the machine. So now you've taken the pins, you want to take the pins out. Now that the pins are out, you have got a straight line going along the top. There's three options with pleats. You can either sew all the way down on the fold to close the pleat, so you couldn't open it again. Or you can sew just a wee bit down, a wee bit, or you can have it completely opened. And then you'll just sew that on the sewing machine with a stitch. Now that you have sewn the pleats at the top, make sure you always remove your dead threads. So your dead threads are the threads that you no longer need anymore. So option 1 was to sew right down onto the fold, and this closes the pleat completely. Option 2 was to close the pleat slightly at the top, creating this form. Option 3, you're only sewn less. You can see I've sewn less. And then option 4, I've opened it up completely. So the entire point of a pleat is that it's creating form to the garment. So then it can be opened up and moving freely. So you can see how that opens up, but it's creating that kind of slight pleat. So when you're wearing it, it's then going to more form fitting, and it can be formed around the waist.